TechAQUA 2021. Please welcome your host for today, Justin Giroux. He is a member of the board at the Clean Water Education Foundation, and he is Eastern Canada Sales Manager with Proline Fittings. Everybody, welcome Justin Giroux. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to TechAQUA 2021, a World Water Day training event. I know for a lot of folks out there, just the term virtual training can be a little bit cringeworthy. I'm sure that we've all sat through our fair share of virtual meetings, but today we're going to try and make it fun and informative. So I really appreciate everyone's attendance today. The Clean Water Education Foundation is a brand new registered charity that is in support of all things water. Clean Water Education Foundation was created to promote, encourage, and support education and training in water and wastewater treatment, municipal operations, as well as to support other charitable initiatives, all surrounding the protection of Canadian water resources. Proline Fittings has been the #1 champion in support of the Clean Water Education Foundation since its inception. Proline and the Clean Water Education Foundation has been gathering product samples from various manufacturers and donating them to educational institutions in Canada that have OIT programs. The idea here is to get product samples, the latest and greatest, into the hands of our future water stewards. This is the first fundraiser for the Clean Water Education Foundation, and all the money that is generated today is going towards our various initiatives, including the establishment of a scholarship, which will support students who are passionate about water and the environment. So a very special thank you to all of our sponsors today, including the Walkerton Clean Water Centre, Fiber Technology Corporation, George Fisher Piping Systems, SPD Sales, and of course, Proline Fittings. Globally, water is under an extreme threat with increasing populations, demand from agriculture and industry, and the global climate crisis. There's a lot of pressure on water globally, and it's become an issue. Thankfully, here in Canada, we have an abundance of this precious resource, but it is important that we protect it for future generations. Over the last few years, I've visited various municipalities inside of water and wastewater treatment plants from, Dryden, Ontario to Sydney, Nova Scotia. And there's been one overlying common theme that I've found in all of the municipalities where I've met with folks, and that is there seems to be an awful lot of people that are retiring. It seems every municipality I go to, there are either folks that have recently retired or they're on their way out the door. And just with my anecdotal evidence would suggest that there is going to be a shortage of knowledge and technical know-how to run our municipal infrastructure. The other thing that this has identified to me is just the importance of having a facility like the Walkerton Clean Water Centre. It's a top-notch facility out in Walkerton, Ontario, and it's full of very knowledgeable folks who are just great to talk to and learn from. And here to talk more about the Walkerton Clean Water Centre today is Mr. Carl Kuhnke, the CEO of the Walkerton Clean Water Centre.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Carl Kunke, the leader of the team here at the Walkerton Clean Water Centre. I know we have people joining us from across Canada, so for those of you in Ontario who are very familiar with what we are, for the rest of those in Canada, and some of you are still in the morning, we are a unique government agency here in Ontario that trains all of the drinking water operators in the province to Ontario's very strict drinking water standards. And we also research and develop new technologies for application in the drinking water sector. We're thrilled to be a sponsor here today, and World Water Day is important to us. Normally, on a day like today, we would have over 400 school children through this center in the week, and we haven't done that for 2 years. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to. And so today, and I'm wearing my Walkerton Clean Water Centre hoodie, we all celebrated this morning with a staff picture, which we're going to be sending out this afternoon for World Water Day on behalf of the Walkerton Clean Water Centre. I'm not going to belabor you with my voice. The gentleman that is following me, Brad Hoover, is our manager of training and curriculum development here at the center, and we were thrilled to, if I may say so, steal him from the the Ontario Clean Water Agency last year and bring him to the Walkerton Clean Water Center. He's got a tremendous amount of operational and managerial experience, and it has been put to a test over the last year, given that we've converted a number of our normally hands-on courses to virtual training, which have received, in many cases, a better response than our hands-on training received. So we're in great shape with Brad, and he's going to be talking about continuing education in the water industry. I actually wanted him to change the title, but it would be too long. I was going to say, Brad, this should say the primordial criticality of continuing education in the water industry, but Brad thought that was far too complicated. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Brad, and he's going to step you through 20 minutes. Don't forget, there's plenty of time for questions and answers, and then the auctions following, all of which, proceeds of which go to charity. So thanks for joining us today.
Good morning and afternoon, depending on where you are in the country. And once again, as Carl mentioned, my name is Brad Hoover, and I work here at the Walkerton Clean Water Centre. And before I get going with today's presentation, I first want to acknowledge that we are on lands traditionally occupied by Indigenous peoples. They continue to care for this land. They continue to shape Canada today. And I want to show my respect. Hundreds of years after the first treaties were signed, they are still relevant today. So today we're going to be talking about education, and ultimately, what is education? Why is continuing education so important? And with that, actually learning to ask the right questions, I believe, is a key factor behind education itself. To give you a bit of background, almost 15 years ago now, I started with Ontario Clean Water Agency, or AQUA, as an OIT, an operator in training. And from that, and from my experiences there, I was able to actually work in over 60 different facilities in water and wastewater in a few different areas in the province, and work my way up into management. And then in my last 4 years with AQUA, I was actually able to process troubleshoot. And I became one of the troubleshooters that went across the province. And in that, it really opened up my eyes to seeing how important education and training are. They're absolutely vital into everything that we do in the water industry. And the only way we can get better is by moving forward in these directions. So this quote by Albert Einstein is just bang on, I think. Education is not learning of facts, but the training of the mind to think. We so often look at, facts as, what you can remember. That's education. It sort of takes us through. But the real question should be, can you take what you've learned and actually apply it to the jobs that we do every day? And then actually be able to produce something from that. We often put so much emphasis on traditional training methods that we might not realize that we're actually missing some. When people aren't learning using those methods, should we not potentially change those methods and meet them where they're at? And often this can't be done quite in the classroom. It actually has to be done at work, in the field, and being able to walk people through scenarios and get them to think and figure it out themselves so that it actually sticks for them. So when it's interesting, I go back to thinking as a new employee or in a new position, and anytime you transfer up, let's say through your organization, or you apply a job elsewhere, it can seem overwhelming. I remember the first times you're starting those new positions or that new job, and the learning curve is steep. It's through the roof. It's more almost like just a straight up line, it seems like at times. And it's how can you retain all that information in the beginning? It's just information overload, and so much stuff you review, you drop. I remember we hire new operators, they come in and they sit down and they go through a ton of your material, they go through all the standard operating procedures, and we expect them all to learn it. But there's so much to take in, and especially if you're new, if you haven't been in the industry before, just even learning different processes and how individual plants work different from others can be so much to take in. And after that initial start, do you ever go back and sort of reintroduce it all over again, recognizing that there isn't going to be the same retention that you almost hope that there will be, but taking it and then moving forward, because ultimately the expectation of learning is there, but there's so much, can you actually retain it all? And there's one thing between actually reading that information and now being able to apply the information. To me, there's two very large disconnects that can occur. One can read it, but can they actually move forward with it? And so people work better when they know what the goal is and why. And oftentimes I find that we don't understand why we are being taught something. So either it be a subject or a process or how a mechanical device works, or, rebuilding a pump or something along those lines. You don't see the value in certain parts or different aspects of it, and you're just told either to do it or to learn it. And I find, especially with regulations, when people are just told you need to sample this many times, you need to do this, and they don't understand why, it literally goes one ear and out the other because there's no meaning behind it. And the why of things is extremely important, because our brain actually discards information that we believe is irrelevant or not pertinent to me. Instead of teaching the tools that can solve a problem, we should often first teach the problem, and we will then realize the tools that we need in order to solve it. It then brings meaning and relevance to the tools and gives reason to need them. So, for instance, many of us use hand tools all the time, and it's sort of intuitive to us because we use them all the time. But if we forgot that we didn't really know how to use it in the beginning, and we've literally learned over the years from failures or hitting your thumb with a hammer, so many times, you learn from your mistakes, hopefully, and you fail forward. But if, for instance, if we take a wrench, the primary objective of a wrench is to remove nuts and bolts. And so if we literally just looked at it in theory, we might conclude that ultimately having a single adjustable wrench instead of a ton of tools at extra cost might be the only tool that you actually need to remove nuts and bolts. But the difference comes in when you actually want to apply it. So if you have a 6 mil nut that you want to remove from an engine compartment and you try to get a decent size adjustable in there, all of a sudden you realize it doesn't fit. And you actually need that either 6 mil socket or 6 mil wrench that's actually now big enough to get in there. Or what if you're trying to remove your 19 mil lug nuts from your car's tire and trying to get it off and they're seized? Instead of having the mechanical advantage of the 19 mil wrench, or maybe even a buster bar, or even better yet, a torque wrench. An impact gun to take those off. So quite often there can be many tools to accomplish the same goal, but the ease and the speed and the accessibility that we can do it is quite different. And by teaching and learning, we can do this in so many different areas. So when we're dealing with the experienced employee, especially the experienced operator, or in any job, after you go through that massive learning curve, often we plateau and we stop and we rest. But the learning shouldn't stop there. And the question is what are you going to do in those moments when you think you know everything? Because it's interesting, the more you know, the more you don't know. As you get deeper and deeper into stuff. So can you work with, if you're an operator, can you actually go work with the mechanic, the millwright, the instrumentation, and actually start to learn the ins and outs so that when you want to troubleshoot, when you're trying to figure out problems, when you're trying to understand the flow through a facility, all of a sudden, all these tools can be compiled together and you can start to understand how to ask the right questions, or if something's coming in, new changes or whatever, you can now speak intelligently to it and actually, more importantly, bring questions that can really make others in higher positions think about changes that might be required. So one thing that I find interesting is we've all heard about the water cycle. And many, ultimately kids are taught this in school. But have you ever actually thought about the municipal water cycle? Because although the water cycle happens every day around us, when we look at the municipal water cycle, do we actually realize that if we, let's say, work at the treatment plant, do we realize that going through the distribution, then into the collection and into the wastewater plant, and hopefully if you're drawing from the lake back to the lake and potentially back in again, or a river or whatever, it's cyclical. And one area within this cycle affects another area. And this became so relevant to me when I was actually able to get into process troubleshooting. The issues that we often had at wastewater plants were ultimately, you could tie them sometimes right back to the water treatment plant. And a lot of times disciplines, especially in larger municipalities, or maybe not even that large, are often segregated into their own areas. So either you just work in the water treatment plant, you only work in distribution, maybe you only work in collection or wastewater treatment, but they're all tied together. And the sooner that we understand that one area can affect another area because they are tied in this continual loop, you can then realize that my actions actually have a direct effect over here. And so quite often at the treatment plant, you can actually potentially change alkalinity, pH, depending on if it's a smaller area, when you maybe have your sludge tank that you're going to discharge. Should you be doing that in the middle of the night to try to equalize flows, or are you swamping the smaller wastewater plant in the day when it just does a backwash and releases right into the system? Or are you having alkalinity drop out of the system because you're not dosing the raw side of things? And these are all interesting questions that, although you might not look at it initially and just say, oh, well, we can't change what's coming in the door here, there can be a common effect. Now, a side note to it is when you actually have a well in the system, is this cycle somewhat broken? Because in a way, you're now not returning to the source. Often wells are drawing from deep aquifers where their source may be in a completely different area. And I know that that's not a question for here, it's just something to ponder and to think about. So here we have an interesting slide. And ultimately, I've got the caption, who will win the race? So we've got an old VW Bug, or we've got a Bugatti Chiron. And for some of you that most people have seen a Bug out there, I've never seen a Bugatti Chiron in person, but it is a bit of a technological wonder, and it was the first car to break the 400-kilometer-an-hour barrier. It's over 1,500 horse. It's over $3 million US. And you would say, well, that's not a fair race at all. But there's a catch. We're only going to give the Beetle gas. And this, well, you'll say, well, that's not fair. And well, of course it's not fair. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how good the technology is. It's what we do with that technology to be able to make it work. So we're going to look at this example in a few different ways. So if we don't have alkalinity coming in our source water, and we pretty much don't boost it, or I should say we have very low alkalinity, and we don't boost it to the level of requirements for even chemicals, it doesn't matter how great the plant is. You could have the most expensive elaborate plant out there, and if you aren't meeting the minimum needs because you don't have enough alkalinity to allow the chemical to flocculate, you've just turned that plant off. So you can have the old reliable thing out there and it will still pretty much do its job in that area. And other areas too, who's going to fix it? There's pretty much any backyard mechanic can go fix a VW Bug, but there's only probably a handful of mechanics in the world that can actually fix this Bugatti. That being said, ultimately, I know there's more than a handful of mechanics out there that can fix certain technologies, but they can be a lot harder to come by. And if you're putting really high technology plants in very remote areas and very small communities that might not want to foot the bill, or it's just so much harder to deal with, is that really the technology that should be going in there? Don't get me wrong, I'm all about technology, but if you can't service it, number two though, if you actually don't train the people to run it, it would be the same as taking anybody off the street, throwing them in the Bugatti and say, go drive this, car in a race. Well, probably the first corner they'd lose control of the 1,500 horsepower or not brake in time, or you name it. It takes not just a little bit of training to operate these vehicles. It would take a tremendous amount of training to operate it effectively. And the same thing can be said about facilities. Even though we are using technology to our advantage, by you taking a highly advanced facility that you're counting either on communications or somebody on site to potentially troubleshoot some issues that you're having with it, it can become overwhelming and the plant will become potentially useless over time, or people keep shutting alarms off or different areas off because they don't understand what it's doing, and it's just causing nothing but a nuisance for them. And the same thing is you would say, well, I'd never take somebody off the street and throw them in this car, but you're willing to take an operator with no training and throw them in a multi-million-dollar facility, or you gave them 2 days of training. Is that really fair? And in those 2 days of training, was it completely overwhelming and they actually didn't pick up the information that they needed to understand at the time? Or should you be going back and re-educating them, making sure that they understand the levels that they need to be at? These are just all things to think about when we look at taking somebody either from a conventional plant or slow sand and throwing them on to some newer form of technology where it's fully SCADA driven, run, and maybe they might not understand the controls that they have there, or maybe the SCADA controls haven't been given to them. Because I've also operated plants that way where you actually handcuff the operator where they can't even use the technology because you haven't properly programmed the SCADA to give them that potential. So sometimes questions are more important than the answers. And I would say this is so true when you're looking at upgrading or designing a facility. These questions are paramount because you might not realize it, but you're actually designing the upgrade or the facility for the symptom and not the root cause of the problem. And if you design or you upgrade according to that, you're still not going to fix your problem. It might be a bit of a Band-Aid fix, But if your weak link in the plant is further down or upstream, you've still got a problem on your hands. So the consultants that are here and in the group listening today, things that I feel over the years of experience that I've sort of been involved with and seen, you really need to know, because what are your clients' needs and what is their realistic budget? Not just their budget now from potential grants that they're getting, but what is their operating budget going forward in the future? And just because you're selling a new technology and you might say, oh, this needs minimal man hours compared to where we were before, is that the actual case? Talk to real operators in the field and say, is this realistic? Because we don't think that you need to apply near as much time. And it's funny, in the past when I operated some of the new plants out there that were supposed to take almost a quarter of my time, they took more time than the original plant did in the beginning, because some of the things just don't work the same way that you think they will. What are the operator's skill set levels? Can they actually be able to take this on? Do they have the opportunity to learn? Do they have that depth of knowledge to be able to rely on? And in this case, when you're starting to go at it, you might say, well, we're here just to upgrade the specific, maybe the dislodging of the clarifier. But is that really the problem? What are the real issues to them in the plan? Take a little bit of time if you can. Talk to them. Ask them questions. They might never have been through either an upgrade or a new plant design before. They don't know what questions to potentially ask. They might have a lot of frustrations. You need to remember, this might be the only water that they've ever treated before. And so to them, it's a big deal. And even though you may have treated a lot more difficult water, you've got to find ways of introducing questions or making them show that you do care. But there are other methods, there are other alternatives out there. And in the end, when you're done with the upgrades or the new plant, how are you going to train them? Are you just going to hand over the operations manual and say, well, we made it through commissioning, here you go? Or is there going to be more of a process involved in that? So many times we've seen where things have just fallen flat, and it takes a lot of energy and effort to go to that next level, to be able to learn and push those operators forward. So yeah, go through the design phase, work with them as a team. So to ask the right questions is already half the solution to the problem. And so for you suppliers out there, do you know your products? Do you really understand the process and the mechanisms that you are selling? Can you truly troubleshoot your own product? Or are you just gonna kind of spout out what the manual says? Are you selling something from a different climate or designed specifically for these conditions? I've been in areas where they've like, well, this plant worked down, and I'm not joking, it was wastewater, it wasn't water, but here we are talking about Ontario, and it was from a wastewater plant in Dubai. And I was like, well, these are not the same. Another one was, we've never had these limits should be easily attainable. I'm like, but have you ever designed it for those limits? Well, in China, we met this limit. And I'm like, well, that's China. And you're also talking about a limit twice as high as what we had dealt with, what we were trying to deal with here. And so it is interesting. I know sales is key. You have a lot of competition out there, but when you're going out and supplying parts, are you supplying the right one? Do you actually know your clients' needs and budgets instead of selling them the latest, greatest thing? Is it just the basic, normal, old pump that they need instead of a fancy new one with Bluetooth in it? Although, don't get me wrong, technology can be great. Is it really suiting for those areas? Some places, yes, some places, no. And do the operators have the skill level, once again, to be able to do that? So tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I learn. And I can't say this enough about operations. So first off, with operations, municipalities, do you know the municipality's needs? Or if you're an outside, a third party, do you know your clients' needs? Do you know their budgets? Do you know what they're able to work with? Can you work through problems and upgrades as a team? one of the key things I would say in operations is ask questions, ask questions, ask questions. If you don't know, ask questions. I remember when I first started, and I was working the distribution system, and I had some real questions, and I'm like, do you guys normally work on these hydrants over here, or this and that? And they were like, oh no, it's down the road, it's over here. And I was lucky, I got a civil background. And so I went over to the blueprints, I pulled them out, and sure enough, nobody had really understood how to look at the blueprints before. And so when I started doing some work, it was noticeable that things hadn't really been done for a little while. Know also what you're getting into when you get into problems or you get into upgrades. It can open up this huge can of worms that you weren't expecting. And that's where pre-thinking, pre-asking questions all the time can be so key. When you're new and not even, find a mentor. But I would say it doesn't matter if you're new or not. Find a mentor within your organization that you can actually work under, that you can actually glean stuff from, and become a mentor. There is no better way to learn than to teach, in my opinion, because when you start to teach, you realize that there are flaws in what you actually thought, or now you're unsure about some of the answers. So go out there and actually, when you learn, I find you do way more investigating on your own. You start searching things out because you don't want to teach the wrong thing. And in it, when you start to teach, is I find when you really start to learn. So each of us has something to learn from others and something to teach in return. And I would say make education your lifelong goal, and it will not let you down. Thank you. And are there any questions?
Thank you very much for that, Brad. Want to check in with our audience here. So we have a lot of people in the chat. If you do have a question for Brad, now's the time to speak. Go ahead and ask the question in chat. Otherwise, Brad has given us a Zoom link. Is that correct? You have a Zoom link where people can join you, Brad?
Yes.
Excellent. So I'll post that in chat right now.
Okay.
So I'll post it 3 times just to make sure people people see it. And if you're watching right now, please give this stream a like. Hit the like button on the stream. We really appreciate that. All right, well, Brad, I do not see any questions in chat, so let's leave it at that for now. I have posted the Zoom link. If you would like to speak to Brad Hoover one-on-one in Zoom after this chat, go ahead and click on the Zoom link that I just posted in the chat. Otherwise, thank you very much, Brad.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad.
Alrighty, well, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was great. Interesting stuff.
Very interesting stuff, yes. So we have a lot of people in chat right now. So we're in between. Oh, we do have a comment from John Giroux. Brad, thanks for the presentation. Very good insight. Would be happy to talk about how George Fisher can help with training. That's awesome. So if you're watching right now and you pre-registered for this event, you should know that you are eligible to win a free Amazon $50 Amazon gift card. So we are thinking we're going to give that away right now. Is that cool with you, Justin?
Yeah, I think now is the time to do it. That makes a lot of sense.
All right, so we will be picking at random one person among all the people that have registered, and I will announce it here. So just one moment.
Should we have a drum roll?
If you would like to do a drum roll yourself.
I don't have the sound effect button?
I do not have a drum roll sound effect. I apologize for that. All right. So with the imaginary drum roll, and just to let everybody know, so we are giving away a gift card now, but there will be a live auction, kind of a live silent auction happening after each of the following talks. And we will give you instructions on how you can bid on those items. I believe there's an air fryer that's up for grabs. There's another Amazon gift card, and we'll let you know. As soon as those prizes come up, those auction items come up, we'll let you know what you need to do. But the winner of the $50 Amazon gift card, just for showing up, just for signing up and showing up, is Richard Jackson. Richard Jackson of the District Municipality of Muskoka. Richard Jackson.
All right. Congratulations, Richard.
So congratulations, Richard. You got a $50 Amazon gift card. Thank you so much for your registration and for showing up. And thank you, everybody, for coming to this event. We are going to set up the next talk, and we will be back very, very shortly. All right, everybody, it is time for our next technical session. I would like to welcome Frank Farkas, Regional Sales Manager at SPD Sales.
Thank you very much, Mark. Welcome, everyone. Today, presentation is going to be on the Grundfos DDA stepper motor dosing pumps, and we're going to talk about the advanced features and maintenance typically for these pumps. The dosing pumps using the stepper drives have versatile control capabilities. This allows you to control with the standard 4 to 20 milliamp inputs, but also using Ethernet communications as required in the control scheme. With the stepper motor, you get precise control of the diaphragm, which allows you to control the dosing into your process. And along with the control of the diaphragm, we also get some additional features to monitor the dosing performance. I'll go into that a little bit later. The stepper motor also, because of its control, provides less wear and tear on the diaphragm, and just it's a softer motion and just results in less frequent change out. Additionally, we're going to have a couple of videos to show the maintenance on these units, that it's simple and straightforward for the end user. Now, diaphragm pump all share the same basic diaphragm head. The technology for the pump has been around for eons, and basically as the diaphragm moves forward, it pushes fluid into your process, and on the return, suction stroke sucks out fluid from your tank or reservoir. On the discharge stroke, as the diaphragm starts moving forward, as shown on the video here, the suction valve is closed and the discharge valve opens, and this allows the fluid to go into your process. On the suction stroke, the suction valve is opened, the discharge valve closes, and we're able to suck fluid or chemical from your tank or reservoir into the head, and able to repeat the whole process over again. Typically, the diaphragm pumps are powered by a solenoid coil or a motor. In the case of the Grundfos DDA pumps, we use a stepper motor. Now, with solenoids pumps, they have a solenoid, and the solenoid is a coil of wire with a shaft through the center and the diaphragm attached to the shaft. As the coil is energized, it moves the shaft forward and gives the forward motion to the diaphragm. When we take away the voltage, a spring returns it back to the starting position, discharge position, and it's ready for the next stroke. All this is done through electromagnetic force. The solenoid fires in about 1/10 of a second, and it's either on or off. There's no variable control on that. With the stepper motor, you get precise speed control, and with that, the diaphragm is attached to the stepper motor via gearing, and we're able to accurately move your diaphragm through the motion and give accurate dosing into your process. Because we also know that the position of the diaphragm as we go through the process, we can also take advantage of this to monitor the pressure in your process. I'll have a slide on that a little bit later. With the stepper motor, drive, we're going through a full stroke on every stroke with the diaphragm. And this means that you're continuously dosing chemical except for the return stroke, which is very short. And again, with the motion control of that stepper motor, we have less wear on the diaphragm. It does a softer motion, takes out some of the stress that that can be seen with some of the drives of the diaphragm. So here's an example of what we can do with the stepper motor. Grundfos has an integral pressure sensor in the pump head, and with that, we're able to monitor the pressure being developed in the head. And I'll just get my spotlight here going. So when we're starting a discharge stroke with fluid in the head, we're getting a buildup of pressure to the back pressure of the system. And now we're dosing that chemical through the full stroke of the diaphragm. When we reach the end of the stroke, we go into our suction stroke, pressure drops, we return, and we're ready to start it over again. In the case that if you have air in the head, the pressure sensor can see that the buildup of pressure is not the same signature as with a head filled with fluid. With this information, the pump gives out a warning. Either you can have a relay output or the display goes orange to indicate that you're having cavitation in the head, air bubbles in the head. The pump will continue to operate, and when again full stroke, and when we return back, if the air gets cleared, then we get back to a pressurized signature that is normal. And this would continue on through the whole dosing process. So we talked a little bit about the full stroke, and this graph here will hopefully help highlight how that works and the benefit to you, the end user. At 100%, the discharge suction stroke are about the same. Pump is running full out, and we're dosing chemical again through the full stroke. The effect really comes into play when we start going less than 100%. At 50% here, the pump speed is slowed down, but the stroke is still the same. We're still doing a full stroke. So we're dosing chemical for that whole stroke, and we have our suction or return stroke to start over the discharge. With the stepper motor, it has an 800-to-1 turn down, so it can slow down the speed and still accurately do a full stroke to dose your chemical. That becomes even more apparent on the 10%, where now we're going very, very slow to discharge chemical into your process. We have our return stroke. It happens very quick, and we're ready for the next stroke. And on some pumps, the stroke can take up to 30 seconds. So we're continually dosing chemical. This can eliminate slug dosing. Another feature with the stepper motor is that if you're dosing viscous fluids on the discharge stroke, you can go slow, which viscous fluids can exert a lot of pressure on the diaphragm. By going slow, that takes away that pressure and get longer life on your diaphragm. On the slow stroke, in our slow mode, we slow down 50% the return stroke. So again, we're taking away some of that pressure on the diaphragm so that it will last longer, less frequent maintenance for you on that. And then it continues on. These features can all be, the slow mode can be selected from the menu screen from the pump. Now we're going to just demonstrate some of the maintenance on the pump. Couple of videos. We're going to start off with the valve maintenance and show you what's typically involved with the valve maintenance. The video can start.
Performing valve maintenance on a Grundfos DDA pump. First, remove the top valve by unscrewing it. Repeat this process for the bottom valve. You should inspect old valves for dirt, buildup, or residues. Here are the new valves. When installing the new valves, make sure that the etched arrow is on the direction of the desired flow. Thread this into place. Hand tight does the job. Repeat this process for the bottom valve, again, checking the direction indicated by the arrow. Your pump is ready to operate once again with brand new valves.
Good. I hope you enjoyed the videos there, or video, I should say, with the valve maintenance. Remember, just hand tight. Don't need to use wrenches on there to tighten those valves down. The next video will be on diaphragm maintenance, and again, Grundfos has worked to make this the maintenance on this pump pretty straightforward, and in fact, it's so simple even a salesman can do it. So we can start the video.
Replacing the diaphragm on a Grundfos DDA pump. Disassembly. Unplug the flow sensor cable and unscrew the deaeration valve. Using a flathead, pry open the head cap. With a 4mm Allen wrench, loosen the bolts holding the head onto the body of the DDA. Press and hold both buttons to extend the diaphragm to the maintenance position for removal. Unthread the diaphragm. You may want to check for any rips, tears, or deformities. You may also remove the flange and safety diaphragm for a complete disassembly. Part 2. Installation of the new diaphragm and reassembly. Return the safety diaphragm onto the drive nut, ensuring the top indicator lines up accordingly to provide a tight seal. Return the flange to the body, lining up the bolt paths and placing this guide tab on the right side. Now, you can install your new diaphragm. Press and hold both buttons again to retract the diaphragm back to the operating position. Bring the head into place on the body, ensuring this groove is lined up with the guide tab on the flange. Return the bolts to their positions and fasten with your Allen wrench to a torque level of 3 Newton meters. Plug the flow sensor cable back in. Snap the head cover back into place, making sure to leave room for the cable. Screw the deaeration valve back into place, and your pump is ready for action once again with a brand new diaphragm.
All right. Very good. I hope those videos give you a little bit idea on the maintenance with the pumps. in addition to selling the pumps, we also do the chemical feed skids for a variety of chemicals. We have the sodium chlorate, caustic, sodium bisulfite, ammonia, and other skids or applications with skids we also do, as well as the control panels that to interface with the control system, SCADA systems that are out there. Thank you for your attention. Follow us on LinkedIn, visit us at our website. Also contact us at info.spdsales or give us a call. Any questions? I'm here to answer them.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that, Frank. I hope everybody had a good time. Oh, we have Justin Giroux, the host of this very event, is asking a question. Justin Giroux asks, what's the recommended maintenance interval for a pump diaphragm with the stepper motor?
Very good question, Justin. The Grundfos recommends a yearly maintenance on the diaphragm. Change that out. With the process that people are running, they find that they can often run it longer. So it usually comes down to process experience that people have with running their process, and they base it on that PM schedule on that.
All right. Also, Frank, we have another question from Shailesh Parmar. Forgive me if I mispronounced that. They ask, Frank, how often do we need to change valves and diaphragms on dosing pumps?
Okay. Again, the recommendation is from Grundfos yearly. If you do inspections and check the valves for dirt, that's usually one big problem that'll happen with the valves, because it doesn't allow the dirt doesn't allow the valve to reseat. And again, on the diaphragms, you're looking for tears and rips on there. Typically a clean fluid like hypo or sodium bisulfate, not too much of an issue. But if you're dosing ferric, where you got sometimes some chunks coming through, that can increase the wear as well. Again, a PM of once a year will give you a good idea to see the condition of the diaphragm, and then you can decide if it's worthwhile to change it out or keep on running.
Alrighty. Well, thank you very much for your questions, and thank you for those answers, Frank. And thank you for this great presentation. People have your information, and they can reach you if they need to. And we'll be moving on. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, everyone. Time for our next presentation. Please welcome John Giroux, Managing Director at George Fisher. Go ahead. ahead, John.
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy to be here. Happy to be part of TechAQUA 2021. I think it's a great event. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself and George Fisher before we get started. Won't take too long. I've been involved in industrial valves or automation for about 22 years. Started my career with Chemline, then moved to Bray with metal valves, and then now I'm currently at George Fisher. To give you an idea of who George Fisher is, so George Fisher is a Swiss-based company. We're sort of, I like to call us the biggest, least known company in the waterworks and water treatment industry. So we've been around for 220 years. Same company, obviously not the same guys, but we are publicly traded on the Swiss Stock Exchange. We have roughly over 15,000 employees. We're a $6 billion company. And the Canadian operation got founded in 2008 when George Fisher purchased one of its distributors to establish their own presence here in Canada. So as it pertains to the municipal water industry, GF does everything from the inside the plant products, as well as the outside the plant products in terms of pipes, valves, fittings, instruments, typically all thermoplastic based with maybe the exception of our mechanical couplings, which are metal. So that just gives you a quick sort of overview of what GF is and who we are and what we do. The little cross that you see in the GF logo actually came from not the Swiss cross, but the malleable iron cross, which George Fisher was the first to manufacture back in 1864. One other thing I wanted to highlight about George Fisher is that we've been supporting clean water initiatives actually for quite some time. Globally, as a company, we have invested and donated more than 10 million Swiss francs over the past 20 years into various clean water initiatives. The latest ones that we do here in North America is called the Walk for Water. We actually partnered with Grundfos with that the year before the pandemic hit. And we've been doing it out of our California office for quite some time as well, and we'll be happy to do that again. So as GF grows, particularly in Canada, our exposure to clean water initiatives will also grow, and so we'll be happy to keep participating and happy to work through events like this. So what I wanted to go through with everyone reasonably quickly for us is sort of what is important for an operator or someone maintaining a chemical feed system inside a water plant. And other than the pump, the next key piece of equipment is typically the pressure relief valve. As those solenoid pumps or stepper motor pumps are pushing, they want to push against something in order for them to be totally effective. And what they're pushing against tends to be the pressure relief valve. And all pressure relief valve or pressure regulating valves for chemical feed systems follow on the same principles. So they all have a spring and a diaphragm. The spring is mechanically torsioned by tightening usually a threaded rod, and that either tightens up the spring and increases the tension, or it lessens the spring tension. And the rest is the pump pushing against it, lifting the spring up and allowing the liquid to get through. So what I have up on my screen right now is actually two different pressure relief valves. One is the GF on the right-hand side, the other is one of our competitors. But the idea being is they both work more or less the same. But some of the things we did in our design was to try and improve ourselves on what we saw was available and where we knew the tripwires were and where we knew there were issues. So we wanted first and foremost to increase the flow area and to make the sealing area larger. Frank did bring up chemistry like ferric chloride and even things like alum or things like sodium hypochlorite if it crystallizes. If you have a larger sealing area and a larger flow area, it helps us to prevent fouling of the valve. And when I say fouling, it means the diaphragm won't seal properly because of all of the solids that are built up. We made the spring area much larger so that it distributed the forces on the diaphragm better. It just allows for better performance as the valve hits overpressure. So everything with that valve is mechanically actuated. It's not electrically actuated or air actuated. It's the actual pressure in the line that's making this valve open and close. But we also wanted to make sure that retrofits would be simple. So what we did is we made this new version of the valve the exact same face-to-face dimension as something like a Chemline SB series valve manufactured by ESV Stube out of Germany. So the two valves can be swapped interchangeably, including the union nuts, which connected into the piping system. Something else that we do, which is different, is if your system has CPVC instead of PVC, we also manufacture this valve in CPVC, which is unique to us. We took away all exposed metal. So no longer do we fasten the bonnet down to the body with metal fasteners. We removed that, and the bonnet is a glass reinforced polyamide, which actually threads onto the body so that we don't have to have any metal that could potentially be exposed. For us in aggressive chemistry, exposed metal is always a potential hazard. If anything's going to rust or corrode, it's going to be the metal components. The other thing I wanted to talk about as well is what we do in terms of our services as well as our prefabrication capabilities. So George Fisher here in Woodbridge now, we offer services for engineering, so we can take designs and review them and give our input as to whether those designs need to be or could be improved by either switching plastic materials, or we do stress analysis on the pipes to see where the potential problems might be. And we take into consideration all the factors that are typically not thought of when engineers are designing systems using metals as their baseline. All of our design software is based on using plastics for their point of reference. So we take into consideration the thermal expansion and contraction of plastics, the pressure ratings for plastics, how they're different than metals, the recommended pipe velocities for liquids going through the plastic piping systems. But these are just services that we offer on top of being able to supply complete package of whatever the chemistry needs to get from point A to point B. We do everything from the discharge of the pump to the injection point of the chemical. If there are prefabricated drawings or spools that you're swapping in and out, if you have a drawing of the spool or the piece that you want to replace, we're happy to use our fabrication facility here, solvent cement all of the PVC pipes together for you, and then it's a simple swap in, swap out. Those are things we do as well. The other thing that George Fisher and its 220 years of experience has is we've seen every chemical so far, right? We've got it in our history, we've got it in our database. To give a little more light on it, George Fisher as a company actually invented the solvent cement that is used to put PVC together. So that was back in I think the early 1960s. But the one thing we do have is a complete division in our head office that all they do is look at chemistry applications, and whether they're mixed chemicals or specialty chemicals or even branded chemicals, they'll be able to take a look at it, go through all of the different components and come up with a material recommendation that we're able to stand behind. Something else that we're developing as a company, we have a lot of these in place already, but we're making the point of presenting them a little more professionally and organizing them a little bit better in terms of getting groups of people together. So we do training courses for operators, maintenance people, even contractors on how our recommended processes for solvent cementing for things like PVC or CPVC. We also incorporate into those courses, how are we handling aggressive chemistry? What are we doing in terms of knowing which components will work, which components are potentially difficult, and taking a look at a system from point A to point B and identifying where the weaknesses are. If there is an exposure possible, what can we do to mitigate that? Do we need to use double containment? Do we need to remove metals and add plastics? So these are all things that we have available in our training courses as well. When it comes to valve maintenance, it is for us very straightforward, but these are things that we're more than happy to get together with water plant operators and maintenance staff and take them through. If you have a pressure relief valve, how do you take it apart safely? How do you identify the components which might be at risk within the valve, understanding how they work? And all of that is sort of key to being able to maintain your chemical feed systems better. We even do things like plastic welding, whether it's hot air gun welding or using a heating plate and doing butt fusion or IR fusion. We do all of those trainings as well. So we're happy to help there. And that really is the GF presentation in a nutshell. Fast, furious, and ready for questions.
Wonderful, John. Thank you so much for that. We will put it to our audience right now, people in the chat, people watching at home. If you have any questions for John, just let us know in the chat right now, and we'll give him a couple minutes there. There is a short delay between the time that we're doing the presentation and the time that they actually hear it, so sometimes it takes a couple of seconds. Alrighty. So if there are no questions for John, I'm sure people know where to reach you, John, on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see. No, I don't think we have any questions. So on that note, we will say thank you very much, John, for that presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, John.
And we are back. All right, so I'm sorry if I missed a question. Oh, we got some thanks, John, in the chat there. So now we do move on to our first auction.
Ah, yes. Time for the auction.
So could you, while I set up the, I'm going to put up the rules here on screen. So while I set this up, could you maybe explain what, why people, where's this money going for this auction?
Good question, Mark. So I sort of mentioned in the beginning with the Clean Water Education Foundation, we're setting up a scholarship fund for students, financial assistance for students who are entering into municipal operations and environmental engineering and programs of that nature. Yeah, so that's primarily where it's going. It's a 100% volunteer-based program, charity. And it's centered around Canada and Canadian operators and engineers. So yeah, it's a local initiative. So we're pretty happy and excited about that. Yeah.
Excellent. Alrighty, so I will be putting up the rules up on screen now. Just one quick moment. All right, so the auction will be a silent auction style. And from the time that we say auction is go, auction has started, you have 10 minutes to send us your bid for the item once the auction begins. You have to send your bid to social media at prolinefittings.com. You have to make sure to send us the item name, description, and the exact dollar bid. We will announce the winner at the beginning of the next auction, so after the next presentation. and we will leave it to a limit of 1 bid per item per person. So the item that is up for bid is an air fryer, and I will be throwing that up on screen right now.
And we should keep, can you keep the auction rules happening at the same time, Mark?
Yeah, leave those on screen as well.
If possible.
Yeah, we can totally do that. Make these a little bit smaller, so we'll keep the auction rules, and voila, and the air fryer. So I believe John said that the estimated value of this item was $90, if I'm not mistaken, $90 Canadian. Let me just double check here. Yes.
Okay.
So the instructions are up on screen. If you would like to bid on this item, please send us an email. And let's see what the chat has to say here. All right, thank you, Catherine, our moderator, putting the email in the chat there. And we have a few minutes before the next session starts, so we will be back.
Am I off air, right?
No, you're off air right now. What's up?
Stuff.
Well, you're back. You're on air. You're on air.
Oh, okay. No, yeah, with regards to Frank and John's presentation, that was great. Neat to see. I never realized the differences between a solenoid-driven motor and a stepper motor. I could see how you can really sort of fine-tune the dosing rate with that stepper motor. And then for that PRV from George Fisher, the feedback, of course, we represent their products. And the feedback that I've had from various operators who've used it really appreciate the threaded bonnet. I was at a facility in southwestern Ontario, and there was a whole box filled with PRVs, a different brand, and they were slated to be repaired. But it was labor intensive. You have to remove the bonnet with bolts and nuts. And so moving to the George Fisher style was a lot easier. You could just unthread the bonnet, access the internal components very easily. So getting a lot of positive feedback about that.
Wonderful. Well, while we wait for our next session to begin, I will flip over to the next screen. So you have the rules there. If you would like to bid on this air fryer that we have up on screen, follow the rules that you have here. Send your email and your bid to social media at prolinefittings.com, and we will be back shortly. Hey everybody, that's out here right now. We are going on a short little break. I believe we just wanted to do all this streaming today, and we forgot that we needed to have a little break. So the the next session will begin at 2:40 Eastern. So 2:40 Eastern. So I suppose that is in 14 minutes. So we will be back in 14 minutes with the next presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back for our next technical session. So this will be technical session number 3. We'd also like to thank you for your bids for the air fryer. We will announce the winner of the air fryer after this session. But for now, I would like to welcome to TechAQUA 2021 Karim Kabara, Business Development Manager for FTC Corporation. Hey, Karim. Good.
Thank you so much for having me on the show.
No problem.
Well, I just first of all, thanks for everybody for being on this show to watch this, and I'm really excited to talk a little bit about our innovative water tank. It's been in the market for a while, but it's a little bit new to the U.S. market. As you probably know, steel tanks and wooden tanks and plastic tanks is what's being used in general. Our tanks, which is, as you can see on the picture right here, it's made from fiberglass. I wanted to show a couple things on that first picture, and I want everybody to remember them because I'm going to go in detail in them after that. As you can see right now, the panels right here, these are, each one comes by itself, the panel. These are a 2-meter panel. If you can see that our tanks sit a little bit up high from the ground. If you can see the inside of the tank, you see those bumpy convex shape panels on the bottom, and how clean the tank look from the inside. So those are the things that I wanted to talk a little bit about them in the below, and just I want you to remember those couple things before. If we go to slide number 2 right here, basically FTC had been incorporated since 1992 in Virginia. We basically thought of what is the problem that is happening with all the tanks, and we wanted to find a solution for those shortcomings that's inherited by traditional storage system. Our company was created because of in the Middle East, when you put steel tanks in the desert, the sand would blast the tank and eat it out basically. And that's mainly the reason why we thought about this tank. And then we found out that there's a lot of other problems that was found with the commercial tanks, and we were able to focus on all those things. FTC in general, we have 2 main offices. One that's in Dubai, that service Europe, Asia, Africa, and Australia. And we have 1 office in Virginia that focuses on the North America and the South America. I'm located in Houston, Texas, and I work for the North America office. I handle the whole Americas. We have our VP in Virginia, and we have our technical engineers in Virginia also. Our mission is basically to keep clean water clean. And if you really have looked in, I'm sure that some of the engineers and some of the operators, they've looked inside the tank before. The water does not look clean, and inside the tank does not look as clean as we want it to be. A lot of people say, you know what, hey, I don't drink that water, which is true, but you shower with that water, you brush your teeth with that water, and you bathe your kids with that water. So our focus is to make it as clean as possible. This picture right here is a picture of a tank that we changed in Houston that I would like to start with. This tank, as you can see on the picture on the left, was leaking from the bottom. This is a 5-year-old tank, and they had to cut the tank all apart and then take it all out, and we had to put our tank instead. And that's again after 5 years. If you can see on the tank right here, and remember that the tank on the sides here does not look as bad. On the bottom, there's a lot of sediment, and that's where the rust, and that's where the problem happened to the tank from the bottom. That's why it was leaking here, as you can see on from the bottom. To go to our tank a little bit, solution to traditional water tank problems: keep the clean water clean, eliminate cost of continual maintenance, eliminate all traditional tank disadvantages, reduce energy costs. we're gonna start with the factory and how we manufacture this part. This is the factory that we have in Dubai. Basically, we put the fiberglass resin UV stabilizer used to manufacture the sheet molding compound, which is we call it SMC. To be to be accepted by AWWA and get basically the certificate, you have to have at least 40% or more glass content in your tank, and we do have 40 and more in our tank. You might see a lot of other tanks that they are fiberglass too. They look good, but they are not AWWA approved because they don't have enough glass in them. Glass in them basically make them stronger. Also, if you look on the bottom right here, after we make the mold, SMC is molded and pressed at a high temperature. Hot pressing eliminates the styrene emission and therefore does not impact the taste or smell of the water stored. So whenever you press that on a high temperature, that molding, I'm sure that you guys all have bought something that's fiberglass and it does have a little smell to it. And if you put water, it would have a little bit taste to it. That's basically the styrene emission. Whenever you press the fiberglass under an extreme high heat, you would eliminate all that. So our tanks basically from day one, they don't smell or taste anything like that. Biggest plus on our tank is that basically we put it together any way you want it. You tell us what you want in the tank and how big and how tall and how angled you want it to, and we customize it for you. Our tanks that we've done in the past, they range from the minimum size 260 gallon, which is a 1 meter cube, and it goes all the way to 2.5 million gallon that we put. This is right here, as you can see on this is the smallest tank that we have. It's basically the 1 meter panel, all the way around. We can go in height up to 8. We usually try to stay around 4 or 5 meter in height on most of the tank. We can have a rectangular shape. We can have it L shape. We can have it U shape. Any shape that you want, S shape, as long as it's a 90-degree angle on the side of it. So this comes very handy, especially in areas that you get a pole or you get something that you got to go around it. Benefits of the tank: when you press the molding on high, it creates for you a panel that's a smooth mirror finish. And if you guys can just imagine, when you get a smooth mirror finish, it would not allow any bacteria to grow, because the bacteria mostly grow on a rough surface. So this is going to be almost like a like a glass. So even if any bacteria or anything like that just grow on it, it's really easy to wipe it with your hand and get it all out. So eliminating bacteria is a big deal in our tank. Due to the color, the opaque gray color that we make the panels from, it's the #1 color that eliminates all light, 0.00 light infiltration in it. So no algae growth due to the color of the tank. Leak-free design, 40 years design life. That's basically before you would have to do any service on it. The first major service needed on the tank would be after 40 years. Our tank would live 100+ year easily. Minimal cleaning required. I'll come also into that one in the picture. Most of the tank, they need a lot of cleaning, and also they need you need to stop the tank and have to use another tank while you're cleaning your tank. Our tank needs minimal cleaning, and it's a very easy process that you can do it in the same day. You can put it indoor or outdoor. You can put it in the extreme hot weather or the extreme cold weather, and I know that makes a lot of sense for Canada. As I mentioned for you guys before, I said please watch that picture and remember that our tank sits a little bit high from the ground, and the reason we do that is because when you do that, you can drain the tank completely. Most of the tank, when they sit on the ground, when you drain the tank, you have 7 to 8 inches in the bottom that you cannot drain, and mostly that's where most of the sediment stays. So our tanks, when you drain it, you can drain completely the tank, wash it, clean it in the same day, and then plug it back in and put it in service, and you get a brand new tank. Easily fits into confined areas or carried to building roofs. I would like to use the example of the New York City. I'm sure that you guys have seen the wooden tanks that they put on top of the building. Whenever they want to put a tank on top of the building, they got to shut down the street and rent an equipment to be able to lift the a tank all the way to the top of the building. Well, ours, because it comes in panels, we take it up the elevator and we build it up there. So you can save the money for the shutting the street and the money for the lift to take it up. Another benefit is also low profile design prevents the NIMBY complaints. NIMBY stands for not in my backyard. I put couple in California in a very wealthy area, and nobody wants to see a huge big tank in their backyard. So not in my backyard is NIMBY. Our tanks stand 3 to 4 meters high usually, so that would eliminate any view blocking. Eco-friendly, we're the most eco-friendly tank in the market. Extremely strong with an 8 times factor against actual bursting pressure. Excellent wind, load, and seismic resistant. Every single tank, it depends on the area where it's going to. Our computer would generate the exact panels that are needed for that area. It could be because it's a windy area or seismic area or so. So California, for example, and Hawaii, we've been working with many tanks in those areas, and we create a special tank for them. 30% saving on energy cost. And I would like to mention that this is basically whenever you're looking at a tank that's a big tank, most of the time, and the old school will teach you that the higher the tank is, you get the free gravity coming out of it. But nobody think about the water going inside the tank. So to basically bring the water up to the tank, you need a big pump that carry the water all the way up. And yes, on the way down, you get free gravity, but on the way up, you're using a lot of big pumps and a lot of energy to do that. That's why most of the time they use that at night when the electricity is less expensive. Since our tanks sit low with VFD pumping, you don't need those big pumps. You can have a pump to get in and the water and pump to get out of the water. And it would be much cheaper than using the big pumps to push the water all the way up. Just going here on a little bit on the panels are pre-engineered and can be assembled for any required size or shape water tank. As we talked about, you can see how the panels they all look the same, but for example, the panels in the first meter are much stronger than the one in the second meter. They're stronger than the one in the third meter, so it makes a big difference. The sealant that goes between the tanks is basically, I would say that this is the secret of our tank, and this is the most exciting thing about the tank. As you can see in the picture here, the sealant, it's a rubber sealant. It's a SEBS material. It does have 4 O-rings where it stops the water. So even if there's any leakage of water in one place, there's another place, there's another place, and there's another place. When I said at the beginning that every 40 years you will need to do a maintenance on the tank, basically the major maintenance is changing that sealant between the panels only. So you can order sealant, take off the panels, put another sealant, and then put it back on. That's the first major maintenance that needed for the tank after 40. And again, when I say 40, sometimes people think 4 years. It's 40 years. Inside the tank, as you remember in the first picture I showed you, the convex panels. We create all the panels on the bottom of the tank. They're convex shapes, and then we do a couple of them that they are concave. So whenever you're trying to drain the tank, basically water would go all the way, follow those small hills, and go all the way down to the valley, which is the hole, and you can drain your tank extremely quicker that way. The best test to ever do to see how well the water would drain is a ping pong ball. 50-cent test actually. You put that ping pong ball inside the tank, and you will see that it would follow to the last drop of water. Once you drain the tank, you wash the inside of it, make sure it's all clean, then you plug it back in, and you're in service for as if it's a brand new tank. This is basically just to show some of the picture of the tanks that we've had indoor. We can create any tank indoor to fit exactly where you want it. Outdoor, this tank is in Dubai. Just imagine the heat that this tank is going through, and it's right next to the ocean. So I know that in Canada, you guys don't have that extreme heat, but just to show you that the panels, how strong they are, that they can resist the corrosion of the ocean plus the heat of the weather. Another picture here to show that the extreme hot weather, we do provide panels that they come with a 1-inch or 2-inch insulation. And in the extreme hot weather in the deserts, this is an American base that they use the panel, our tanks for it. When you put the 1 or 2-inch insulated panels, it helps to keep the temperature of the water a little bit more controlled. The same thing we do for the extreme cold weather. This is a tank in Alaska that we provide it. One very important thing that I wanted to talk about is the control of the temperature inside the tank. When you have an extremely cold weather or extremely hot weather, that basically changes the temperature of the water, and that changes the chemicals inside the water. You would need more chemicals inside. And if you are running something to keep the temperature of the water hot or warmer or something like that, basically this is going to be fluctuating a lot. With our tanks using the insulated panels, that would lower your fluctuation of temperature a lot. We are a green lead tank. We have a lower carbon footprint compared to aluminum or steel, less chemical usage compared to concrete or steel, as I mentioned before, because of the fluctuation of the temperature, lower material footprint compared to concrete, and the use of the FRP panel tanks will save around 30% energy, as I mentioned to you guys, especially on big tanks, instead of lifting the tank up and then using those big pumps for it. The installation of the tank, and I would like to also mention the shipping of the tank. Shipping of the tank, sometimes when you ship a tank, even if it's a plastic tank or steel tank or anything like that, the cost of shipping is very high because of the volume of it. Our tank comes in 1/10 of the size of what the original tank is. So if you look at this one here, this is a container that could take this tank. So instead of renting a big truck or a bigger truck, and you need to make sure that that there's police cars next to it or whatever to make sure that it's safe on the road, ours transport in a much easier way. And installing the tanks, basically, if you look at the panel and another panel, and this is the rubber sealant that I have in between, and once you bolt it and tie it up, with the basic tools, that's needed, you get 2 panels stuck to each other, and then the rest of the tank is as easy as it is to build it. It's basically the same exact work repetition. The process is basically, the engineers would decide which tank would fit best for the project. They give us the order. Panels will be manufactured, done at the plant. We ship it to the customer site. Each project received a tank drawing, and plus it received a manual and assembly video on how to put it together. An easy way to make you guys understand that is basically it's almost like an IKEA thing that it basically comes in with the manual of how to put it together and stuff like that. Then the accessory installation follows. Any extra accessories that you guys need, and a lot of people ask me about the flanges and stuff like that. You can do those on sites. On an average, it takes 12 weeks from the day you order to the day we deliver the tanks. And whenever we do not install the tanks, Proline would install them for us, but we can send also a factory trained assembly supervisor that could basically watch and make sure that they're doing exactly what they need to do. Building the tank, we usually, as I mentioned, we don't like to put it right on the ground unless it's a very, very small tank. So we always like to put it a little bit high. So it would help us to make sure that we can check all the panels on the tank. So for inspection, it would make it so much easier. Plus also, let's say, I mean, if there's any small leak or anything like that, you can always see where is it exactly coming from. And for the installation also, we would need to have it a little bit up the ground. So one way to do it is building you have to have a flat surface, concrete, and then we can put the upstand columns right here, as you can see, the concrete ones, they go. And then we put the steel frame, and then we build the tank. Step one is we go with the bottom, then we go wall, 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 and then we put the roof, and then we put the last wall. Another way that we've been doing right now, especially for tanks that they're not that big, we can do another kind of frame that basically it's pedestal steel footing. This is put on in minutes basically, and then you can put the tank on top of it, and that provides us the same thing. If it's a big tank, we still recommend the concrete footings on it. Regarding the accessories, the flanges, and all those things, everything that usually go on regular tank, you can put on our tank. You can go with the flanges up to 24-inch. If you need more than that, you can put two and then combine them together. Install internal and external ladders, the air vents, the water level indicator, and use tank controls with any other tank that you've seen before, basically. Options, you can choose your flange size, provided overflow flange has at least double of the inlet flange capacity. The baffles, the vortex, the water level indicator, like I mentioned, the insulated 1 or 2 inch if you want it on the tank. Supplementary heating are accepted, such as flanged submerged heaters or others. Seismic design that we for those areas that need that, and snow load design. So all these things I would like to know before we basically plan the tank for you and send you the design. We'll talk about all these things, and you guys tell us, you know, what area, what are you looking for, and we can create one for you, send you the pictures, and once your engineering approve it, then you can send the order. Our market, I hate to write those things, but basically it's everywhere, from a 260-gallon tank to 2.5 million gallon tank. Local municipality, I mean, we've been doing a lot of schools here in Texas, rain harvest tanks, government, you know, in the desert, water reuse tanks, potable water, fire reserve, stormwater retention, you name it, you know, residential, commercial, we do all those. This slide here is neat because we're in 56 countries worldwide, and we've had over 300,000 tanks that's been installed. So we basically have every single stamp or certification that you can ever think about. I mean, from you know, Australia to Netherlands to US to Middle East, everyone. In here in the US, we consider American Waterworks Association is a very important one. NSF is a very important one. We put some in Canada also. NSF 61, as you guys know it, it's famous. NSF 372 is one of the ones that's becoming more famous now. It's the lead-free, basically, and we do have that one. Looking at basically, if you can think of any other ones, I'll be glad to discuss it with you if we have it or not. This is I'm going to show you right now a couple of projects right now, so you can see. This is a project that we have in Boston. If you can see the difference between this panel and this panel right here, this panel is flat panel. This panel have insulation on it. These two tanks are insulated. This is not insulated. Another picture to show you that it's basically when you put the tank together, it's like a Lego. You know, once you know what you're doing, it's the same repetition that goes in for the whole tank. This is one of the most popular tanks that we have. This is for a desalination plant in the Middle East. It's right next to the ocean, and if you look at the intakes and the outtakes of the tanks, this tanks get 1 million gallons of water every hour, inside and outside. We've had this tank for 13 years, and it's working extremely good. Another very famous project that we have is a 2.5 million gallon right next to a 2.0 million gallon Dubai International Airport. This is, as you can see, is 4 meter high. And you can see that underneath it right here, there's a place where you can drain the whole tank and then fill it back up. Why FRP panels? This is basically just to go back and focus on the inside, the outside of the tank, and how when you have a pre-engineered panels that you put them together, gives you a much easier way than to have, you know, one big size tank and then you have to work with it. This is here. This is my number and my cell phone and my email. And this is the JC also that he's with us on the call, our sales engineer. If you have any questions, for the time being, I just wanted to see if anybody have any questions, or Mark, are we getting any questions on the tank that I would like to leave some time to answer them?
Sure. I did put it to the audience, so if you do have any questions for Karim and FTC Corporation, now's the time to do it, and we'll give them a couple of minutes to answer. Or maybe not a couple minutes, but we'll see. But the chat was pretty quiet. People do have a means to get in touch with you, and I wonder, I want to try scanning that QR code myself now to see if it works.
Yeah, this is something our engineer JC, he decided to come up with it.
That's pretty good.
I'm not that technical.
All right. All right, our host, our dear host of the event, Justin Giroux, asks, what Canadian installations have there been?
JC, you want to answer that since you know that?
Yeah, I will get that. We already had like a few installations, but the biggest one is in Nunavik, in Northern Territory in Canada. This one, this specific project that we worked on won the Innovative Municipality Award because they used the minimal footprint available, and it gave them like huge points back in 2017, and they were able to win it. So that's one of the most famous projects we have in Canada right now.
That is awesome. That's great. All right. Well, I don't see any other questions, gentlemen. So I will say thank you very much for your presentation. Also, thank you very much for your generosity. We will talk about your auction item just ahead. And I hope the both of you, JC and Karim, have a great day.
Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you so much, Justin. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, gentlemen.
And
thank you
for the customers, if you
We are back. We are back. Hey, Justin, that was a pretty good presentation. I just wanted to update our chat right now. So we thank you very much for your questions and for your attention. We did get some bids for the air fryer, Justin.
Ooh,
That's right.
dynamite. Do we have a winner? Or?
We do have a
How's-
winner.
Okay.
I'm reluctant to say what the winning bid was. But the winner of the air fryer is Peter Rainey. Peter Rainey.
Very good.
So
Congratulations, Peter.
Congratulations, Peter. You have won yourself an air fryer, and I will be in touch, or someone from Proline Fittings will be in touch with you to collect your bid. Now we have the next item. And I'm just going to throw for the audience, I'm going to throw up the rules here again. So our next item is a $50 Amazon gift card. Is that correct, Justin?
Yes, that is correct.
Yes.
This is an easy one.
This is an easy one. It's a no-brainer. So
it's a no-brainer.
Estimated value, $50.
It's pretty clear, cut and dry what this one's worth.
But yeah, we same rules as before. So the rules are up on screen right now. Let's see. It is a silent auction again, and you have 10 minutes to send us your bid once the auction begins. You have to send your bid to social media at prolinefittings.com. Make sure to send the item name / description and the exact dollar bid. And the winner will be announced at the beginning of the next live auction, and there's only one more left. Again, the prize right now is a $50 Amazon gift card, or the auction item is a $50 Amazon gift card.
It's worth at least $49.99, Mark.
Yeah, at the very least. Alrighty. So while we collect the bids, we'll get ready for our next session, and I believe it's the last session of the day.
Yes, I believe that is correct. Rounding things out nicely with our own homegrown talent, Proline Fittings.
That's right. We kept the best for last. We got the Proline Fittings presentation coming up. I did, Justin, get an email from a gentleman who was asking about the on-the-job training certificate. So
yes.
Would you like to maybe say a few words about that?
Sure. Yeah. Essentially, to anyone who who's looking for the OJT certificate, we will email that out to you. Essentially, anyone who's registered for the event, we've got your contact details, and we'll be able to follow up and send you that certificate. And if there's anyone else who's been a part of this and is looking for it, please don't hesitate to reach out and contact us.
Excellent. All right, so we will be accepting your bids. The auction is open now. Remember, the prize, or the auction item rather, is a $50 Amazon gift card. A $50 Amazon gift card, and we will be back shortly.
Thank you, Mark.
All right, everybody, it is time for our next technical section. And as we said, we kept the best for last. We kept Proline fittings for last. So please welcome the Western Sales Manager for Proline Fittings, Brian Lastwicka.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to be part of our World Water Day and our TechAQUA 2021. So today we're going to be talking about, if it comes up, well, that's an unfortunate. What happened? I have no answer.
There
All right.
it is. Oh,
Did it come up on your side?
Nope, it didn't, but that's okay. Well, let's see. All right, we're going to fiddle a little bit, folks, and then we'll be right back.
What happened?
And we are coming back, folks.
here we go.
And that we're back.
All right. Hey, sorry, everyone. No idea why that happened that way. So we're going to be a little bit more simplistic. So we're going to be talking today about PVC structures and flow controls. So when we think about water in general, most times we're talking and thinking about potable water, drinking water is what everyone's mind goes to. But there's a huge part of our industry that deals with water when it's no longer potable, i.e. sewer or stormwater that would need to go somewhere and get treated. So everything that we're going to be talking about today is when water is no longer good. So there's a lot of different terminology that the industry uses for a lot of these type of fittings or controls or special structures or drops. We have them clarified as all, in essence, are chambers. So as we advance in our water world, we're more in an inspection mode and being able to understand what's going on a day-to-day basis and having a better understanding of what's actually happening to these systems under the ground. So we're going to delve deep into inspection chambers. Then we're going to move on to sampling chambers and flow controls. And then we're going to discuss manhole drops very briefly. So as we move to inspection chambers, the biggest question we always get is why? And inspection chambers have been around for over 40 plus years. They were the very first product that Proline Fittings made. It was made under the name of Leron Plastics back then, made by two gentlemen in their garage, Lee Watts and Ron Watts. And quite frankly, they are in use in heavy prevalence in lots of areas across Western Canada, especially British Columbia. So when we talk about why, with an inspection chamber allows a reduced maintenance cost and from property owners claiming blockages. It allows for all your inspections that may be needed, visual and camera. The key item here is no need to set up time to get into the property to inspect potential blockages. And in this very unique time that we're in, where social distancing is a thing, I've had several conversations with cities with challenges setting up ability to get in and do certain inspections because of our present world we're living in. So this allows them quick access with none of those limitations. So to get a visual as to what's happening, this is on the right-hand side of the screen is a generic landscape portrait side view where there'd be a typical property line. Everything to the right of that property line dot would be the property or the owner's concern. So his house would be just to the right of there. So in this case, the city would come out, they could take off the lid, which is secured. They can drop their camera in, they can do visual inspection and check if there's flow. If there is flow, then they know that the blockage is further to the left of that picture on the city or municipality side. So it's much easier to decide who's in an ownership position. And then on the far left-hand side of the picture, we just have a basic cutaway showing the half side of the chamber, standard riser to the top, and then we get a lid. Now, in the lids and collars, there's many colors, they're customizable, so we can stamp them for cities and the like. But the one thing that has always been a way to challenge the product was they're typically in areas where they might get bumped, they might get dinged, they could be in areas of potential damage. So in the last year and a bit, we've been working with the city of Surrey, and we've developed an all aluminum lid with powder coating on it, which makes it significantly stronger and eliminates a lot of breaking opportunities. Key one is brittleness to UV exposure, which all PVCs have that inherent weakness. So it's really quite an advancement. So it really benefits. And I'll show you a couple pictures here. Here's a couple inspection chambers that I took pictures of in my last month of probably walking around in my local geography. And we could see the one on the left-hand side. They've done significant things to keep it together. I'm not sure if you can tell, there's a little bit of a valley from the lip, then there's a hole, and then there's the center disc. Now, if we look back on our original picture on the city of Surrey, we're flat. So a key thing to that is no water buildup gets in there. So if you are in a cold environment, we eliminate that ice dam buildup, which eliminates all this damage that we're seeing here. And on top of that, then we are also a lot stronger. And we can see the picture on the right where all the structure is actually there, but the actually top cover is gone to keep it safe and secure. So inspection chambers are an extremely valuable tool that can make life significantly easier for maintenance staffs in every municipality if they aren't using inspection chambers. Now, these happen to be 4 and 6 inch, which are the most common for municipalities for a home type situation. But of course, this design and this concept, this thought gets taken to very high levels. And as we move through, you'll see a couple other examples of this, but there is no limitation on size with their custom fabrication abilities. So, right now, when we look at sampling chambers and flow controls, these are typically using the same type of thought process. There's an in-out, but in these cases, you know, we're typically in industrial areas where there might be significant drainage, and they want to be able to inspect what's actually coming out of these factories and these plants and being put down the drains before it hits any waterways to cause any damage. So this is an efficient and safe way to create that, and it's outside of the actual owner's building. And again, they can be fabricated to any size or city requirement. This one happens to be a 36-inch sampling chamber with 6-inch inverts. All right. So as we move through this, they can also be extremely simple and really, really cost effective. So this was an instance where there was an 18-inch coming out of a building, and the engineer just wanted a little sump basin to store some water so they could periodically come in there and check on it. So we designed that 6-inch on the bottom, and then they still wanted the 8-inch inspection ability at the top, so we can incorporate our standard lids and our covers. So again, a very simple way to put some protections in and ability to test and control and monitor the systems. Okay. Another way we can look at some sampling chambers is we've developed and designed a Weir system where, as long as we know the inverts, we can design this system, which a threaded rod would go right to the surface, which would allow you to up and down the weir to block the water, so you can put a dip rod down and pull your sample. In this case, the community was asking for a secured locking mechanism at top. And if we look at the far left-hand side of the picture, we have a washer rod and padlock system that we designed and developed to keep this system secure. Again, same type of philosophy. The one thing that I'm adding in here is we can see the blocking on all our pictures. So we make sure we have significant structure in all these builds. So there's no worry about any type of, oh, is that going to give way and is it going to collapse inside the structure? They're designed to last and designed to build. In this case, there was significant invert differences, which necessitated the weir so they could stop the flow and build a puddle there. Otherwise, it would just continually drain out.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we're going to look at a couple of visuals here. So I want to look at the picture on the left. So this is a flow control structure on a storm, but I want you to take note of the big square gate valve, basically, that's on there to protect, which is sheet plate schedule 80, which is extremely heavy. And the reason I want to take note, because the next thing we're going to talk about in the manhole drops will specifically focus on some of our advancements we have made. If we look at the picture on the right, very large, I believe that is a 36-inch piece that we fabricated. But the key things here, I want you to look where the girl has her hand. And this is another big part about controlling flow, is an orifice plate structure. So the whole premise of this is going on a infill where they have to control the stormwater on site. That is why the need for the large pipe on site, but they also have to control the discharge of that stormwater to the system. And the orifice plate allows that to happen. And then if you look at the top, we have a hinge backflow on there. So in case of extreme overload, it will give way and discharge the excess water. A couple more pictures here for everyone. We can see we have another structure, but if we look at the picture on the right, it might not be clear, but there's a plate, but there's a very, very, very tiny hole on there. I believe that's like a 1.5-inch orifice. So that 36-inch pipe, the amount of water stored in there, the flow is getting extremely restricted. The picture on the right-hand side of the screen, which is a 15-inch, we incorporated also a trash grate so they can stop some small particles, smaller pieces, and even larger ones from getting through the system. And that one went from 15-inch down to 6. So again, controlling the flow, keeping the systems from overloading. I'm sure everyone's seen those experiences where all of a sudden the roadway, the water's popping through and the manholes are exploding. And that's just from excess stormwater coming into the system. So everywhere they can control it and keep it in the pipes and control the discharge, it makes the systems run significantly easier. Okay, so when we move to manhole drops, this is another area that's often overlooked, but is used in a day-to-day manner. So these are some pieces we also worked with the city of Surrey on. And if we actually look at the structures themselves, so I have highlighted control structure, if you follow that arrow. So that piece that looks like a cross is the manhole drop. So in a lot of instances, this would be done by contractor grabbing a T and maybe a clean out and a threaded plug and sort of building something on site. So with our all-in-one design, we have the ability to inlet, we have the ability to control the discharge, and we have the ability to gate valve. Now, if we look at the next statement, lightweight, notice on the section BB on the right-hand side, it's profile view of the round pipe coming out. So we've eliminated that whole large square gate structure, which adds significant weight and makes them cumbersome to actually do the cleanouts, inspections if someone actually had to go in there and do it. So the next picture will actually get into exactly how that works. But this really makes it a lot easier for the contractor and a lot safer and easier for the municipalities because they know what they're putting in every time. Okay, so if we look to the next picture, we'd see that on the hub style end view picture that I have the highlight on, we've designed a cross-section cutout that slides like a half moon and blocks the flow of debris, still allows a little bit of flow of the water. But if you see at the end view, again, it's a very small structure. So we only need this tiny little tight chain to hold that in place. And if you also look at the end view, there's a little tiny dot at the bottom of the circle. That is actually a block. So when you lift that gate up, it does not actually fully remove itself from the fitting itself. So it's doubly secure. Now, in this case, as opposed to having an orifice plate like we see here, where a hole and an inlet, which would reduce the flow into the structure, in this one, they wanted to really reduce splashing and bring it all the way down to the surface of the basin. And then they added a elbow at the bottom and have it coming into the barrel that way. So erosion and corrosion in barrels is really what we're trying to eliminate with both of these technologies, because it's a fairly constant problem, and especially in areas where there's a lot more elevation slopes, the force of the stormwater coming into the system can do really significant damage onto these concrete manholes and these concrete structures. So we have lots of specific ways to deal with stormwater, deal with sewer water, be able to inspect, to be able to control, and be able to get a greater understanding and really ensure the life cycles of all these very expensive systems that get put into the ground and are basically critical infrastructure, like we all know. So with that, I really appreciate you taking the time to listen. Hope I highlighted a couple things and maybe gave you reasons to think about things you hadn't thought about before. And with that, that's the basis of the presentation. If there's any questions, I'm open to them.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you very much, Brian, for that great presentation. We'll put it out to our audience now. If you do have a question for us, for Brian, for Proline Fittings in chat, speak now or forever hold your peace.
Yeah, really neat stuff there.
If my video can go on here.
Alrighty.
It's crazy how you practice, you do all the detail to make sure everything's working, and then when it actually needs to work, it goes, I'm gonna be a little difficult.
It's that's always the way it is with live streaming. It's you know, it's not an exact science, unfortunately.
No, I think we got through it well.
Alrighty.
I didn't even swear, everyone.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, we did say to Brian, no swearing under any circumstances. But no, we don't have any questions. So, Brian, you can be reached on LinkedIn. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you can reach out to Brian on LinkedIn, or you can always reach out to us at Proline Fittings at the Proline Fittings page, and we will get back to you. Well, thank you very much for that, Brian.
All right, everyone. Have a great day.
Yeah, that was great, Brian. Thank you. Yeah, that was a great presentation, Brian, and we're catching up to Proline West with the custom fabrications. For those of you that are sort of learning about Proline here in Eastern Canada, we've recently added a lot of fabrication technology. Of course, we have everything available to us from Proline West, and it really is neat to see all of the different things that they're able to manufacture and produce these custom solutions. In fact, I had a conversation with the OPS committee, the OPS Drainage Committee in Ontario, that's the Ontario Standards Committee, and I shared with them the drawing from the City of Surrey for the inside drop with the custom gate. And there's a new drawing now that's available on the roads with the road authority and through OPS committee. There's a new drawing that specifically talks about the gate and some of the technology that Proline came up with. So really neat stuff.
That's awesome.
So are we jumping into another auction here?
Well, yes. Well, before we jump into the next auction, we should talk about our previous one. So the previous auction item was a $50 Amazon gift card. So we did get a bunch of bids for that, of course. But we did get one really awesome bid. I won't say how much, but a very generous bid from our very own Brad Hoover of Walkerton Clean Water Centre. So the manager of training and development for the Walkerton Clean Water Centre, who we just had the honor of listening to a presentation from a little earlier today. So thank you very much, Brad, for that, and congratulations for your on your $50 Amazon gift card.
That's great, Brad. Really appreciate it.
Alrighty. So now let's talk about the next item. So the next item is it's complicated.
It is. It is.
All right. So let me just prep that real quick here. So I will be putting up the auction rules again.
Okay.
And it is the last item.
It's a big one.
Alrighty. So yes, this next item is kind of a big one. It's complicated. I wrote it down here for our audience just to make sure that they can see. So just one moment. Let's see here.
I might have to explain what tough oil is to folks out there.
I mean, this is not just one thing. It's several things from Proline Fittings. So just one moment. I'm just trying to fix it on screen here. All right. So the item here. So is it okay if I read it out?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, dandy. Read away.
So the item is a $50 gift card to Amazon, a $50 gift card to MEC, which I would imagine is Mountain Equipment Co-op.
That is correct.
And a tough oil engine treatment.
So that's an 8-ounce bottle of tough oil.
Got it. And of course some Proline swag, which I believe we have a lot of it. We have a lot of Proline swag. We're building a swag army.
Yeah, you've got the toques, the hats, the cups, the t-shirts,
That's right.
the whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah, so the whole kit and caboodle. So I'm a big fan of the beanies myself. So yeah, so the total value of these items is $250, or the estimated value, right?
Yeah, estimated value, if not more, actually.
Okay. So
So
that's what we are suggesting as a bid. So just to I put up the auction rules on the screen. I'll read them again just to be sure. So the live auction rules and instructions. So it will be a silent auction, and you have 10 minutes to send us your bid once the auction begins. Send your bid to social media at prolinefittings.com. Make sure to send us your item name / description and the exact dollar bid. The winner will be announced at the next auction, but now we don't have a next auction. So I suppose we will for this one we'll contact the winner at some time in the next 24 hours. How about that? Does that sound okay?
yeah, we could announce it as well on LinkedIn and the different socials.
That's right. We'll announce
Something
all
like
the
that.
winners for sure.
Okay.
And then limits of one bid per item and per person. So again, this item here is a $50 gift card to Amazon, a $50 gift card to Mountain Equipment Co-op, a Tough Oil engine treatment, and Proline Fittings swag, an estimated $250 plus value. So go ahead, the auction begins now. Please send your bids to social media at prolinefittings.com.
And so, Mark, there's a bit of a backstory on the Tough Oil,
Oh,
actually.
is that right? Just one moment.
Mhm.
I'll bring you back up here.
Oh, well, you don't have to bring me back up.
Well, what is the story? What is it? Why such a prize?
Okay, so Tough Oil engine treatment is manufactured by a company called Floramics. We took on Floramics about 2 years ago now, and the primary reason was for a product that they manufacture called Lox 8. And so this Lox 8 hypopaste, it's pretty impressive stuff. It's the only thread sealant that actually works with ferric chloride, sodium hypochlorite, alum, all of these chemicals that tend to crystallize and salt out at the threaded connections. Lox 8 actually prevents that from happening. It contains the highest PTFE content of any thread sealant that's available on the market. It's approved by NASA for use in their aerospace industry. It's used by a lot of different, companies like Praxair. It's safe for oxygen, but the main thing for Proline was that it prevented leaks with hypochlorite. So for municipal water, wastewater treatment. Floramics also makes Tough Oil engine treatment, interestingly enough. And so Tough Oil engine treatment is in the Guinness Book of Records as the world's best engine treatment still to this day. And same idea, it contains the highest PTFE content. So the sort of common thread here with Floramics products is that they have a lot of PTFE in them. And yeah, so it sort of makes sense that we put the Tough Oil in there. I put it in my car, and I can say that it made a difference. Actually, it starts a lot easier now. But so there it is. There's the backstory.
That's awesome. It was almost a commercial, I
I
remember.
know. Well, it's funny. I mean, obviously we're not in the automobile industry, and so the Lox product is what really made a lot of sense to add to our solutions portfolio. But Tough Oil sort of came with it.
Wonderful. All right. Well, that is a very great story. And we will be expecting your bids. So in addition to this great engine treatment, you got some gift cards, some swag, an estimated $250 value. All right. So it was quite a day. We've been streaming now for almost 3 hours, Justin.
Wow. Yeah. It
It
I can
flies
feel
by.
it in the lower back. I don't usually sit for this long.
Yeah, maybe for the next TechAQUA, we'll bring in during the break, we'll bring in like a yoga instructor or something that they can help
That's good.
get everybody to stretch.
I would love for the next event to be in person, face to face. That would be that would be a special treat, and I think it's coming.
Excellent, excellent. Do you have any remarks or anything that you wanted to say in closing?
No, I mean, I said it at the beginning, I'll say it again. Thank you to everybody that is in participation, joining us for the live stream, as well as to all the sponsors. Again, the Walkerton Clean Water Centre, SPD Sales, and George Fisher, Fiber Technology Corporation, and our very own Brian Leswicka from Proline Fittings. Thank you to everyone.
Excellent. And thank you for everyone that's been watching. Thank you for showing up. We really love putting these events together. Make sure to, before you leave a like on the stream. That really helps us. Leave a like on that video. We plan to cut this up into a few pieces, so you'll be able to rewatch this whole stream again if you want to. Or if someone missed it and they need to watch one of the sessions, they'll have that available on the Proline Fittings YouTube channel. Otherwise, if you do need information for on the job training, you can reach out to social media at prolinefittings.com. If you would like to send us your bid, have a question about the bids or any of the prizes today, same destination. You can send us an email at socialmedia@prolinefittings.com. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us. But otherwise, that's it from me.
Great. Thank you, Mark. Very well done, well produced. You're a rock star.
All right, I appreciate that.
Great.
Excellent. Well, everybody have a great day and very, very happy World Water Day.